Oh, my dear Miss Everdean, I thought we'd agreed never to lie to each other.
If you haven't heard of Donald Sutherland, you just saw in the clip a second ago. He played the evil President Coriolanus Snow in the Hunger Games. You may be more familiar with his son, Kiefer Sutherland, which I'll talk about in another video. This is an astrological portrait of Donald, who recently died at the age of 88 on June 20th, 2024. His chart shows why he was an actor, according to the rules of Gemini astrology using the tropical zodiac. And if you want to know if you could be an actor too, then get your chart in this South Indian style, because Gemini astrology is based on the signs, and the South Indian style shows that best, and then follow along with me. He started acting in 1960, and it took 7 years before he became known for his roles in movies such as MASH, Clute, Don't Look Now, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Ordinary People, Animal House, Cold Mountain, JFK, Backdraft, Disclosure, Outbreak, Ad Astra, The Hunger Games, and just too many to mention. And then he also did a lot of work in TV for HBO and others. When I heard that Donald had passed, we watched Ordinary People and Clute again. Clute is one of my favorite movies by him. And they were just as absorbing and flawless as they were when we first saw them. We're probably going to binge watch several of his movies over the next weeks. In fact, we just finished watching Fierce People, and last night we saw Space Cowboys, and both of these movies were wonderful. Okay, now let's look at Donald Sutherland's birth chart to see why he was an actor. According to Gemini astrology, you need these requirements to be an actor: Mercury for skill, Venus for entertainment, the first house for using the body, the third house for entertainment skills, the second house for speech, and the seventh house for public exposure. Now, these 6 requirements, they have to be connected to self factors in the chart. And the self factors are the Atmakaraka, which is the self-producer planet, and you can see that in your chart by looking for the planet that is at the highest degree. You ignore the signs, you ignore the nodes of the moon, and you ignore Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus. It's only the traditional planets we're looking at here. Okay, so the Atmakaraka, the Swamsha, which is the Atmakaraka in the 9th divisional chart, the Navamsha, the Pada, or the Upapada, and the Ascendant. Let's see how these self-factors show up in Donald's chart, indicating that he would be an actor. Well, the first thing that we see here is that Mercury, planet for acting, for actors, is with Donald's Atmakaraka sun. And then we see that we have Venus here, the planet that represents the entertainment field, is right in the first house of the self, or the body, the part of us that represents our literal path through life. And then, and then the ascendant, where Venus is in. Also, the ascendant ruler, Mercury, again, as I said before, is with the Atmakaraka. And then the third house for entertainment skills, because the third house is always skills. Well, that is ruled by Mars. Mars is ruled by Venus, and Venus is ruled by Mercury. So you can take a planet through 2 signs, or 2 rulerships, 2 dispositors, in order to connect it to one of the self-factors, which we just did. And then the second house for speech, well, that's Libra, so ruled by Venus. Venus is right here in the ascendant, which again is ruled by Mercury, which is with the Atmakaraka. And then finally, the 7th house for public exposure. Well, his 7th house is ruled by Pisces, which means it's ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter is here in the third house of entertainment, and it is sign aspecting the Upmakaraka and Mercury. Now, in the Gemini technique, the sign aspects are very simple, and that is the movable signs, movable cardinal signs, aspect the fixed signs, and vice versa, except when they're right next to each other. So, for example, Jupiter here, the seventh house ruler, is aspecting all these planets here in Cancer, the sign of Capricorn, the eighth house, but not Venus or Libra, which is right next to it. So we can see that his chart meets the requirements. He has the seventh house lord aspecting his Upmakaraka sun and Mercury. And now, let's look at the Pada and the Upapada. The Pada means foot, and it's the foot of the first house. And the way that you find the Pada is you look at the first house ruler, which in this case is Mercury, and then counting clockwise from the ascendant, you count to the ruler of the ascendant. And in Donald's case, that's in the 11th house. And then you count 11 from there, including the house that the ascendant lord is in. And in Donald's case, that means we end up here at Taurus. So Taurus is the foot of the ascendant. Now, there's nothing in Taurus, but the Upmakaraka, Ketu, Mercury, the ascendant lord, they're all sign aspecting the Pada. Plus, we have Mars here, the third house ruler, which is also ruled by Venus, the second house ruler, aspecting the Pada. Plus, it aspects the Upapada. Now, the Upapada is found by looking at the ruler of the 10th cusp. And the 10th cusp is here in Gemini, so the ruler of the 10th cusp is Mercury as well. And Mercury is in the second from the 10th. Now, counting the same house that Mercury is in, we count 2. So 1, 2. So that means Leo is the Upapada. Well, he majored in engineering and drama in college. And Mars rules engineering. So we see Mars here aspects the Pada and the Upapada, but there are far more indications for drama or acting than there is for engineering, and that's the path that he took. Now, one of the rules of Gemini is that Jupiter, Mercury, and a planet that aspects its own sign, or a planet in its own sign, these are all manifesting planets. But Jupiter and Mercury are always manifesting planets. So he has Jupiter aspecting the Upmakaraka, and Mercury is there with the Upmakaraka. And then plus we have here the Lord of the sign of Cancer, the moon, is sign aspecting the sign of Cancer. So the Jupiter, Mercury, and the moon help to strengthen this sign. Now, like I mentioned earlier, he started acting in 1960, but people didn't find out about him, not the general public, like he wasn't well known, until he went into his Jupiter dasha, his Jupiter time period. And that is because Jupiter rules the seventh house of public exposure. His Jupiter dasha began in 1958, and all during the 60s and the 70s, he became more and more well-known. He became more and more famous. Another reason why it took 7 years for him to become recognized by the general public is because Saturn here is aspecting his first house. Saturn causes delays. But what's good here about Saturn is that it also rules the fifth house of creativity. And one more thing I want to mention is that whenever you see Venus in a Mercury sign or Mercury in a Venus sign, and it's involved with any of the self factors, then that can indicate an artist of some kind. Now, when he went into his Jupiter time period, Jupiter is the planet in his chart that has the most dignity, meaning it has the most strength. So Jupiter here in Scorpio gave his acting planets the power to produce the fame that his work deserved. Now, even though he became very famous, he was described by many as being very humble. He would insist that he was just a mortgage-paying father of 5, which is very typical of Virgo rising. Well, I hope you enjoyed this and you learned how to see an actor in the birth chart, and I hope you want to see some of Donald Sutherland's movies now. Until next time, thank you for watching.